radio stations of DoorCountyDailyNews.com. We are joined by U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
So I think let's just get started with, let's just talk about where political discourse is right now in the U.S.
Oh my goodness, well we're seeing an election cycle like no other we've ever seen, and it actually does give me great pause about the level of discourse, political discourse in this country. There's so much inflammatory and false language, particularly on the part of Republican nominee Donald Trump, which I think is going to have a detrimental effect. And I have to say, I cheer anytime I see leaders of either party, but particularly right now the Republican Party, standing up and saying this is not the way we should be conducting debate on weighty, important, consequential matters. I mean, we have serious challenges facing America, both domestically, economically, as well as abroad. And whatever happened to the days that people ran for office because they cared about responding to those challenges, listening to the people, and working together to get a job done? Certainly there's going to be times where there's stark differences between the two parties, but you don't have to have the politics of like slash and burn to move ahead. In fact, I think it moves us backwards when we do. So I am trying to lead by example, but also welcome people on both sides of the aisle who are willing to say, let's name the problem, we'll work on it together. Let's not vilify the other party, the other side, the other people who are choosing to stand up and serve.
And then how might, in your opinion, I guess, a Clinton presidency differ from what we've seen from President Obama?
Well, she has a very different background. When I think about her experience, first as First Lady, where she really redefined the role by being put in charge of healthcare reforms. In particular, she ended up laying the foundation for the child health insurance program that allows so many millions of American children who didn't have coverage before to have coverage. I think about her time as a U.S. Senator during a moment when our nation suffered the worst terrorist attack since Pearl Harbor. I mean, she represented the state where the towers went down and did this incredible job under great duress. Then, of course, she ran for president, lost, and then teamed up with her former adversary, adversary isn't the right word, but primary opponent, as his Secretary of State. And her familiarity with world leaders, but also world tensions, problems, is unparalleled. So when she is elected, and I'm working on her campaign and very excited about her, she will be, at least in our memory, the most skilled, qualified, prepared person to walk into the Oval Office and to be our nation's commander-in-chief. And I think informed by that expertise, it will be a little bit of a different presidency. There will probably be, she'll be ready to hit the ground running, unlike most of the recent presidents we've had, including her own husband, who served in the 90s.
So I guess what role do you think government has in healing the racial turmoil that we're seeing right now in Milwaukee?
It's a great question, and let's start by recognizing that there are many layers of government. You have responsibilities, I think, that lie at all levels. But I think the most important thing, and you said government, but government's made of people, right? So, I would say listening. A government doesn't listen, but the people who compose that government must. I had the opportunity on Sunday afternoon to to be in Milwaukee and to be invited to participate in a conversation between police, local elected leaders, and faith leaders. They were talking both broadly about what needs to change to confront the desperation in a particular neighborhood, but they were also talking about how do we keep the peace tonight. So it's in many ways a conversation that was convened to say, how do we calm things down immediately, knowing that violence is never, ever the answer, right? But we can't do that until we promise to listen to one another and have a conversation moving forward. It was really instructive for me because obviously I serve at the national level, and there are a number of initiatives we're working on, whether that's realizing the vision of the President's 21st Century Policing Task Force recommendations, making further progress on some of the criminal justice reform measures that have been introduced that would look at inequities in our system, or more of an economic focus of realizing our dream of economic opportunity for everyone. I know that part of the reason I was in Milwaukee was to have a conversation the next day about a poverty reduction reform that I've introduced. And it just seems so relevant, and yet I know that that's something that's not going to turn around overnight. A number of the conversations in the room were very immediate. How do we keep the peace tonight?
And then, I guess, how likely is it that the Democrats can win back the majority in the U.S. Senate?
You know, if I study the races that are occurring across the country, there are some very, very competitive campaigns going on, and I think that there's significant odds that there will be Democratic victories in a variety of states. Obviously, in our own backyard here in Wisconsin, we have a very, very competitive U.S. Senate race. Outsiders are predicting that it's maybe one of the most likely states to flip from red to blue, as is Illinois, our neighbors to the south. But I also, we started with an earlier discussion on the presidential race, and oftentimes the presidential race has an impact on candidates who are running on the same ticket, called down ticket, if you will, but maybe state assembly or state senate candidates, county courthouse candidates, and congressional and House candidates and Senate candidates. I think particularly this year with a figure as controversial as Donald Trump, who is forcing some of the Republican candidates to either stand with him and then have to spend every day either disavowing or joining, with the statement he's just made, or those who have separated themselves from their nominee and said, I can't countenance his campaign or his rhetoric. They may still be proud Republicans, but not Trump Republicans, if you will. But I've seen so many on a routine basis struggle, whether it's Trump attacking a Gold Star family of a Muslim soldier, or him attacking an American whose parents were from Mexico, who is a judge in a case involving Trump University, whether he's saying horrible things about immigrants or the Muslim faith. I mean, just over and over again, other Republican candidates then have to stand and say, well, I don't agree with that statement, but I'm still gonna vote for him, or, you know, whatever it is they say, and it's a really difficult situation. So I think this is one of those years where his presence at the top of the ballot is gonna create some challenges for those other Republican candidates who don't firmly distance themselves from him.
And then if Democrats should take back the majority, I guess what could that mean for Door and Kewaunee counties, for the people who live in them?
Well, there are, that brings me to why I'm here today. So one of the things that is really important to me is the health of our manufacturing economy. And in a state like Wisconsin, which is so richly blessed with water resources, you know, we have three coasts, if you think of it. We have our east coast on Lake Michigan, our north coast on Lake Superior, our west coast, which is the St. Croix River and the mighty Mississippi River, and then all these inland waterways. So our industrial, our manufacturing economy also very much relates to our water resources. And so as I visit with Bay Shipyard, as I visit with folks in Kewaunee who are concerned about water quality, these are all issues that take the cooperation of the private sector and local officials as well as national to to protect our natural resources and to create the best and most vibrant economy that we can. But just to give you one small example, I've been fighting for a long time to increase a very small program called the Small Shipyard Grant Program. It had been zeroed out, unfortunately, and we've restored a small sum to it, and we hope to restore even more to that. But that is something that a state like Wisconsin, where we build ships in Wisconsin. You know, not only do we do that we do ship repair and shipbuilding in Door County, but we also do north of here in Marinette, south of here in Manitowoc. You know, these are things that unfortunately have been neglected, and so you know, it's just one tiny example of what we can do when we work together, when people who represent Wisconsin at the national level listen to the needs and struggles and aspirations, and then get to work trying to get something done.
And then finally, will you make some news by announcing your re-election 4 years early?
Not quite, but you know what? It's not 4 years. I'm in 18, and we're in 16 right now.
So it's even less.
It's even less. But you know, my goal is to work as hard as I can on these 2016 elections, and hopefully I will have strong allies at all levels, and we can make some really important progress on behalf of the people of Wisconsin.
Well, Senator, thank you for joining us today. Again, that is U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin on the radio stations of DoorCountyDailyNews.com.